My name is Natalie Ruiz. I am 35 years old. 4 years ago, my boss Mason Holt claimed my entire marketing campaign as his own during a company-wide presentation, giving the promotion and bonus to his favorite instead, while I stayed in the shadows doing the actual work. Right now, we are in the middle of a make-or-break client pitch at our Las Vegas headquarters with $11 million on the line, and I just overheard him planning to cut me out of the final deal completely. The tension in the boardroom is thick enough to cut with a knife as he prepares to present without my input. I gripped my notebook tighter, anger and determination surging through me. I had built this company from nothing in secret, and today everything would change. If you have ever been stepped on by a boss who stole your ideas and left you carrying the weight, hit that like button and let me know in the comments what city you are watching from and what your own workplace story is. I read every single one. The boardroom on the 27th floor of our downtown Las Vegas office tower felt like a pressure cooker that morning. I walked in wearing the same faded jeans and simple black blouse I had chosen on purpose. I wanted to see how my boss would react when he thought I was just another mid-level team member showing up underdressed for the biggest pitch of the year. My boss, Mason Holt, stood at the head of the long glass table, already barking orders at everyone, his tie knotted too tight and his face flushed the way it always got when he sensed money slipping away. He barely glanced at me before snapping his fingers toward the AV card in the corner. "Ruiz? Stop standing there like you have nothing to do and get the slides loaded properly, this time. We cannot afford any glitches in front of Gabriel Knight and his casino group. This deal closes today or we lose everything." My stomach tightened, but I kept my expression neutral, the same way I had trained myself to do for the last 4 years. I nodded once and moved toward the laptop, feeling the eyes of the rest of the team on me. Dylan Matthews, the rival co-worker who had been gunning for my position since the day he transferred from the San Francisco office, leaned back in his chair with that smug half-smile I hated. "Yeah, Natalie, make sure the numbers look impressive. We all know how much rides on my boss's vision here." The jab landed exactly where he wanted it, implying I was nothing more than support staff. I felt the heat rise in my cheeks, but I said nothing, plugging in the cables while my mind raced ahead. My assistant, Kayla Rivera, caught my eye from across the table and gave me the tiniest nod of solidarity. She knew the truth I had kept hidden from almost everyone else in the building, the truth that KU Digital Holdings, the parent company that quietly owned 63% of this firm, was mine. I had started it 6 years earlier with every penny I had and a vision for integrating marketing tech with the gaming industry, then stepped back to let my boss run day-to-day operations. Because I wanted to learn the business from the inside, without the spotlight. It had been a calculated risk, one that let me see exactly how people behaved when they thought the real owner was not watching. Today, that risk was about to pay off in ways none of them could imagine. The client, Gabriel Knight, arrived exactly on time, looking every bit the high roller in his tailored suit and carrying the kind of quiet confidence that came with managing marketing for 3 of the largest casino resorts on the Strip. He shook hands with my boss first, then scanned the room and paused when his gaze landed on me, still fiddling with the projector. "Good to see the whole team here," he said, but the polite smile did not reach his eyes. My boss jumped in before I could respond. "Natalie is just helping with setup today. Our senior marketing lead is actually out handling another account, but do not worry, the strategy you are about to see is pure Mason Holt original." The lie slid out so smoothly, I almost admired it. Almost. I finished loading the deck and stepped back, taking a seat at the far end of the table where I could observe everything. The presentation began, and within the first 5 minutes, the cracks started showing. My boss launched into the pitch with all the flash and zero substance quoting metrics I knew had been inflated by at least 27%. Dylan chimed in at exactly the right moment, feeding him lines they had clearly rehearsed the night before, while the rest of the team shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. I watched my assistant's fingers tighten around her pen as she glanced at the real data on her tablet, the data only she and I had access to through the private backend I maintained. My boss was about to promise deliverables we could not actually deliver without burning through our reserves, and the client was already starting to frown at the numbers on the screen. Then came the first real gut punch of the morning. My boss clicked to the financial commitment slide and announced with total confidence that our firm would cover the initial $400,000 in development costs as a show of good faith. Gabriel Knight leaned forward, eyebrows raised. "That is a generous offer, Mason, but my legal team needs to see the wire confirmation before we move forward. We had some concerns after the last vendor tried the same thing and then could not follow through. The room went dead silent for half a second. I saw my boss's jaw clench, the same tell he had when he was cornered. He had not cleared that commitment with finance. He had not cleared it with anyone except Dylan, who was now staring straight at me, with a look that said he knew exactly how this was going to play out and was enjoying it. My assistant slipped me a note under the table while everyone's attention stayed glued to the client. It read, "Internal audit flag on the last quarter numbers flagged this morning." My pulse spiked. That was the moment the second mini cliffhanger hit. My boss's phone buzzed loudly on the table. He glanced at the screen, and for the first time that morning, real panic flickered across his face. He tried to play it off with a laugh that sounded forced even to me. "Just a quick update from Jackson Thompson in finance. Nothing to worry about. Natalie, why do not you run downstairs and grab fresh coffee for everyone while we sort this minor timing issue?" The dismissal was so casual, so belittling, that it felt like another slap. He was sending me out of the room like an intern, right when the deal hung in the balance, right when I knew the real numbers were about to expose years of his shortcuts. I stood up slowly, heart hammering, but instead of heading for the door, I turned toward the AV cart one more time and quietly opened the private admin portal on the laptop only I could access. The screen in front of everyone stayed frozen on the inflated slide, but in my hidden window the truth loaded in real time. The contract payment my boss had promised earlier in the week had already been flagged as insufficient. The client's legal team was about to discover it any second. Dylan noticed what I was doing and leaned over with a sharp whisper only I could hear. "Do not even think about it, Ruiz. My boss has plans for this company that do not include you playing hero." His words carried that same cutting contempt I had heard in every meeting for the past year, the implication that I was replaceable, that I had never been more than a tool. The client cleared his throat, growing impatient. "Mason, if there is any issue with the financials, I need to know now. We have $11 million riding on this partnership, and I do not do surprises." My boss shot me a glare that could have cut glass, clearly expecting me to disappear and stay out of sight. But I stayed right where I was, fingers hovering over the keyboard, the weight of 4 years of being erased and underestimated, pressing down on me like the desert heat outside the windows. My assistant gave me another subtle nod from across the table, her eyes saying she was ready to back me up the moment I made my move. The silence stretched thick with the kind of tension that told me the entire room could feel something big was about to break. And then the finance analyst Jackson Thompson burst through the door without knocking, folder in hand, face pale. "Mason, we have a problem. The wire for the commitment did not clear. The bank is holding it pending verification, and we are already past the deadline Gabriel's team set." The words landed hard. My boss's face went from flushed to ash in under 2 seconds. Dylan tried to jump in with damage control, but the damage was already spreading. I closed the laptop lid, slowly meeting my boss's eyes across the table for the first time that morning with something other than deference. He had no idea what was coming next, and neither did the rest of them. But I did. My boss recovered faster than I expected, the way he always did when cornered, and turned his glare straight at me instead of addressing the finance analyst who had just dropped the bomb. "Ruiz, this is exactly why I told you to double-check the wire yesterday. You had one job, one simple task, and now you are standing there like you are surprised we are in this mess." His voice carried that familiar mix of cold sarcasm and long-held resentment, the same tone he used every time he needed a scapegoat in front of clients or the rest of the team. It was never about the actual mistake for him. It was about reminding everyone that I was the expendable one, the mid-level employee who existed to absorb blame while he took the credit for the wins. Gabriel Knight shifted in his chair, eyebrows raised clearly, waiting for someone to explain how a commitment of $400,000 could simply not clear. My assistant cleared her throat quietly and spoke up before I could. "Actually, Mason, the verification request came from the bank this morning, not from Natalie. The paperwork was filed correctly last week." Her words were calm, professional, but they landed like a quiet challenge. I saw the way my boss's jaw tightened the same way it did right before he decided to double down. He ignored her completely and leaned forward, stabbing a finger in my direction. "Do not make excuses for her, Kayla. Natalie has been dragging her feet on these deliverables for months now, and today it is costing us all. If this deal falls through because of sloppy follow-through, I will make sure the entire team knows exactly who dropped the ball." The jab was personal, laced with that hidden contempt I had felt simmering under every meeting for the last 4 years, the kind that said I had never been more than a tool to him, someone he could erase when it suited his narrative. Dylan Matthews seized the opening, leaning in with that slick smile he reserved for moments when he thought he could score points. Mason is right. We all saw the revised timeline Natalie submitted last month, and it was already behind schedule. The client deserves better than half measures. The way he said my name made it sound like an accusation rather than a fact, and I felt the familiar twist in my gut, the one that reminded me how long I had let this dynamic play out, just to gather the proof I needed. Gabriel Knight cleared his throat again, his patience visibly thinning. "Gentlemen and ladies, I did not fly in for a blame game. I need assurances this partnership will deliver what was promised, or we walk. My legal team is already reviewing the contract upstairs, and any more surprises will end this discussion immediately." That was when my boss decided to escalate, turning the full force of his authority abuse on me in front of everyone. He stood up, smoothing his tie with a gesture that was supposed to look commanding, but only highlighted the sweat beading on his forehead. "You know what, Natalie? Since you seem so eager to be part of this today, why do not you explain to Gabriel exactly why the wire did not clear? Or are you going to stand there, pretending you do not know?" The question was a trap delivered with that biting sarcasm he loved, the kind that implied I was incompetent at best and deliberately sabotaging at worst. It hit straight in the soul because it was not new. This was the same pattern that had played out when he stole my campaign 4 years ago, the same public undermining that left me questioning my own value while he collected the bonuses and the corner office. I felt my hands clench under the table, but I kept my voice steady. Before I could answer, Jackson Thompson spoke up again, his folder shaking slightly in his hands. "The issue is not on Natalie's end, Mason. The account flagged because of an internal hold from last quarter's numbers. There is a discrepancy of $62,000 in the contingency fund that needs senior approval before any wires go through." The room went still again, and I watched my boss's face cycle through shock and then something darker, something that looked a lot like panic wrapped in anger. He shot a look at Dylan, who suddenly found the carpet very interesting. This was the second mini cliffhanger of the morning, the one that hinted at deeper cracks in the foundation my boss had built his reputation on, cracks I had quietly documented for months. My boss recovered by doing what he always did, shifting the pressure back onto me with a vicious jab meant to humiliate. "Well, Natalie? Since Jackson seems to think you are the expert on contingencies, now maybe you can tell us how we fix this without losing the client. Or do I need to call in the legal advisor to clean up your mess again?" He was painting me as the problem in real time, right in front of Gabriel Knight and the entire team, and the psychological weight of it pressed down hard. I had spent years biting my tongue, letting him take the spotlight while I built the actual systems that kept the company afloat. Now, with the client watching and the deal hanging by a thread, the temptation to reveal everything right there was almost overwhelming. But I waited, letting the tension build, because I knew the real numbers, the ones hidden in my private portal, would change everything when I chose to show them. My assistant slid another note across to me under the table while my boss paced. It read, "Legal advisor Owen Murphy is on his way up. He has the full audit." My pulse quickened. Owen Murphy, the legal advisor who had joined the firm 2 years ago and quickly become one of the few people who treated me with actual respect, was about to walk into a room already on the brink. I knew he had been quietly reviewing the same discrepancies I had flagged months earlier, the ones my boss had dismissed as minor accounting oversights. Dylan noticed the note passing and shot me a glare that promised payback later, but I held his stare without flinching. The client, Gabriel Knight, checked his watch and stood up slightly, signaling that his patience was wearing thin. "I need a decision in the next 10 minutes, Mason, or we take our business elsewhere." This kind of uncertainty is exactly what I was warned about before signing on. My boss spun toward me again, his voice dropping into that low-cutting register he used when he wanted to make someone feel small. "You hear that, Natalie? 10 minutes. So either step up and fix what you broke or get out of the way so the adults can handle it. I have carried this team long enough without your constant delays." The words were a slap delivered with all the resentment of someone who had grown used to me never pushing back. They exposed years of contempt the way he had always seen me as the one who needed to stay in her place while he claimed every victory. I felt the heat rise in my face, the raw physical reaction of 4 years of being erased finally boiling over, but I channeled it into quiet resolve. My assistant's eyes met mine again, steady and ready, and I knew she would back whatever move I made next. Just as my boss opened his mouth to deliver another jab, the door opened and Owen Murphy walked in, tablet in hand, and a serious expression that told me he had already connected the dots. "Mason, we need to talk about the audit findings before this goes any further. There are some irregularities that directly impact the client commitment." My boss froze mid-sentence, the color draining from his face once more. Dylan tried to interrupt, but Owen kept going, his voice calm, yet firm. "Natalie actually flagged these issues 3 months ago, and the documentation shows the hold was placed at your direction." The revelation hung in the air like a live wire, and I could see the exact moment my boss realized the narrative was slipping from his control. Gabriel Knight crossed his arms waiting while the rest of the team held their breath. This was the turning point I had been waiting for, the moment where all the withheld secrets started to surface. But I still held the master key in my hidden portal. My boss turned to me one last time, his eyes narrowing with pure venom. "If you think you can undermine me in front of a client, Ruiz, you have no idea how wrong you are. This ends today one way or another." His ultimatum was clear, laced with the threat of consequences he thought he still controlled. The room waited for my response, the silence deafening, and I knew that whatever I said next would either expose everything or force his hand in ways he could never take back. But before I could speak, my phone buzzed silently in my pocket with a message from the private backend, one that confirmed the final piece of the puzzle I had been holding on to for months. The phone buzzed with the board alert, but I pushed it aside for the moment, focusing on the room in front of me. My boss must have sensed the shift because he leaned in closer, his voice rising with that familiar cutting edge he always used when he felt his authority slipping. "Natalie, if you think flashing some random screen is going to save you, you are even more delusional than I thought. This is my company, my deal, and you are just the support staff who could not even handle a simple wire transfer. Explain yourself right now, or I will have security remove you before Gabriel decides anything." The jab hit hard, laced with all the long-held resentment he had never bothered to hide, the same resentment that had made him steal my ideas 4 years ago and claim them as his own. He initiated the attack again, turning the entire room against me before I could even speak, and I felt the raw physical shock ripple through me like a slap. Gabriel Knight raised an eyebrow, clearly waiting for more than threats. Owen Murphy stepped forward with his tablet, confirming the logs in a steady voice. The transfer was authorized solely by Mason. Natalie's flags from 3 months ago are all documented and ignored. My boss spun on him next, but his words stayed aimed at me. "Owen, do not let her twist this. Natalie has been undermining me for years, planting doubts, and now pulling this stunt in front of our biggest client. This is sabotage, plain and simple, and it ends with her walking out that door." The sarcasm dripped from every word, a psychological blow designed to make me look like the problem while he stood there, pretending innocence. Rachel Morgan, the senior executive who had just arrived, and Sophia Ramirez, one of the sharpest analysts on the marketing team, exchanged glances, their expressions shifting from shock to quiet realization as the numbers on the screen told the full story of the $62,000 side transfer. I took one more breath, then connected the final override. The screen switched to the parent company records, showing my name as the majority owner of KU Digital Holdings. Gasps filled the room. "The truth is, I have owned this firm for 6 years, I said quietly. I stepped back to learn how it really ran, but today that ends. My boss's face twisted in pure fury. He slammed both hands on the table, initiating the next vicious attack before anyone could process it. "You lied to all of us. You hid behind my leadership while I built this place, and now you pull this. You are a fraud. Natalie, and every person here knows it. Gabriel, do not trust a word she says. She has been playing us all." The contempt in his voice was venomous, exposing years of the way he had always seen me as lesser, as someone to use and discard. Dylan jumped in, but my boss shut him down with a glare and kept the focus on me. "Stay out of this, Dylan. This is between me and the woman who just stabbed this entire team in the back." Gabriel Knight studied the screen for a long moment, then nodded slowly. The numbers check out, and the strategy was solid from the start. We will move forward, but at $8 million with tighter oversight. No more hidden transfers. The client's decision landed like a lifeline, saving the deal, but shrinking it enough to sting. My assistant smiled faintly at me, her loyalty unshaken, but Rachel Morgan stood up abruptly. If this is how things really work here, I am out. I cannot work for someone who hid the truth this long. Sophia Ramirez hesitated, then followed. Same. The deception changes everything. My boss kept firing, his voice shaking now. See, you just lost 2 key people because of your little game, Natalie. This company will fall apart without me, and you will be the one left holding the pieces. His final jab cut deep, but I held my ground. The board call came through on speaker a moment later, confirming the emergency vote had removed him from leadership, effective immediately. He stormed out without another word, Dylan trailing behind him in stunned silence. Jackson Thompson and Owen Murphy stayed offering quiet support, but the damage was done. The deal closed that afternoon with the reduced scope the client impressed enough to sign, but wary of future surprises. In the weeks that followed, I took full control, promoting my assistant Kayla Rivera to operations lead and restructuring the teams around transparency. The $8 million partnership brought stability, and the company started to thrive without my boss's shortcuts. Yet, the victory came with an irreversible loss I had not fully anticipated. 3 more senior team members resigned within the month, spreading word in our tight-knit Las Vegas tech circle that I had deceived everyone for years. Future contracts dried up for a while, and the office felt colder, the easy camaraderie replaced by cautious distance. I had chosen myself, exposed the authority abuse that had held me back, but the isolation settled in like desert dust, a constant reminder that hidden power carried hidden costs. My boss tried one last lawsuit for wrongful termination, but the evidence from the audits buried it quickly. He moved on to a smaller firm across town, still claiming he had built everything worth saving. I sat in my new corner office a month later, staring out at the strip lights, thinking about how far we had come and what it had truly cost. The lesson hit me hard in those quiet moments. Sometimes taking back what is yours means losing the version of your life you thought you wanted, the one where you could stay invisible and still be part of the team. Choosing yourself does not always feel like winning, but it is the only way to stop being erased. Thank you for listening to my story. If you have ever taken back control from a boss who treated you like nothing and ended up paying a real price for it, tell me in the comments what that moment felt like for you. I read every single one.